Happy Aries Full Moon. The full moon will be peaking this evening on the West Coast. So October 6th, October 7th, depending on where you are. But I wanted to dive into this energy as we close out eclipse season because the full moon in Aries, I feel like it's an interesting energy. And I actually just literally this morning finished recording. I have these sacred structure audios. If you haven't seen them, you can check them out in the links below, where I pretty much look at someone's human design and I look at their astrology and we talk through, what their current schedule is, they fill it out in a form, what their priorities are and what their obstacles are and what they're focusing on right now, right? So it could be like finding more time for self-care or finding the time to write my book or whatnot. And then what I do is I look at both charts, their divine design, so to speak, and we look at what is their best alignment for their daily schedule? What is their best alignment for, career expansion and manifesting? What is their best alignment when it comes to how to incorporate things that bring them emotional balance and nervous system regulation throughout their day, all based on, their astrology and their energy and all that. Anyway, so I just finished recording one of those and sending it off. And the woman that I was doing it for has the same nodal axis that I do, which is the Aries Libra axis, which is exactly what this full moon is also, bringing to the front for a lot of us. So I was so inspired. I was like, you know what? Let me just hop on and do a quick podcast and share a little bit about these insights as someone that, lives on this kind of axis. As far as my south and north node go, it plays a big part. And so when we're looking at an Aries full moon, we are looking also at that Libra Aries axis. So it can go a couple of ways. And as always, as I share, my insights and my intuitions with you, I just want you to open up your receiving mechanism here. Open up your intuition, let it flow through you. And I'm going to share with you a couple different ways this could kind of manifest depending on what's going on in your chart and for you. And I just want you to see what resonates with you, okay? So first off, we have a full moon in a sign that's really like a sign about going and starting and action. And so it can feel like an interesting energy when we are in this full moon energy of completion and releasing. And there's a beautiful element of that, as Aries is a fire sign. Fire has this ability to burn away, right? Burn away what's no longer serving us, but also alchemize it, right? Or when you're thinking about metalworking, right? When of course, right now I'm blanking on the word for this. I know this word, but when you're putting you're putting weapons into a fire and then you're welding, that's something. You're welding them and you're making them more bendable and you're shifting them, right? I like to think about that energy when it comes to this fiery Aries full moon, because what we can do is also, there is that just burn up, release, let the ashes go back to the earth, right? But it's also taking those things that we're no longer using, or those parts of us that are no longer serving us. And then what can we alchemize, right? What can we forge in that fire to come out stronger and more powerful and more sovereign, like that Aries calls us into? And so I think when we're looking at this Aries full moon, there can be two elements, two possibilities. So the one possibility that I want to acknowledge, although to be honest with you, I don't think if you're listening to this or you're kind of, in my community, I think I can safely say most of you are going to lean the other way. But I would be remiss to not acknowledge the possibility. So a full moon in Aries can also be you seeing the ways where you have only thought of yourself, where you have maybe acted without, acted could be in anger, could have been in passion, could have been in like, just like a reflexive, something triggered you. Where have you kind of taken fast action or really only factored yourself and not thought of the whole? And that might be, if that's the case for you, then you might have had some pretty painful things come up during eclipse season where maybe you had people that you were in partnership with take a step back and say, hey, like this isn't working for me anymore because of the volatility or because of you're focusing only on yourself and not being a partner. So that is a possibility for what could come up, right? In this thing is seeing how maybe I need to release certain like knee-jerk reactions. I remember a while ago when I was in my 20s, when I was dating guys, there would be times where they wouldn't answer their phone for a few hours for like, they're at work or whatever's going on. And I could fly off the handle and I could let my unhealed parts just like freak out on them. And so for some of us, depending on where you are in your evolution, if that's stuff that might have been coming up during this eclipse season where you've been seeing like, here's where these unhealed parts of me are like running the show or, making me take like rash action that's not really connected to like the truth of who I am and my soul, then this could be a closing of the chapter of that and saying, I really see that now and I see the error of my ways and I see how that was coming and I'm throwing that into this fire. I'm throwing that into this fire. I'm releasing that self-identity that I had that was okay with doing that. And I'm moving forward in a more balanced Aries way, right? In an empowered Aries way. What I feel like a lot of us might be feeling is the opposite, which is this like Libra Aries access too, right? The other area is seeing all of the ways that maybe you've been people pleasing too much. Maybe you haven't actually been standing in your power. You haven't been honoring the things that you're feeling called to start or begin or step up to, and you've been keeping yourself down, right? And that could be because of relationships, because of partnerships. Maybe you've been in like at a certain job for so long that you've let it contain you in a way where you're not speaking your mind, where you're not like going for, that next promotion, or you're not challenging yourself. You're not like allowing that fiery passion to ignite. And so you're seeing with this full moon that that's something that needs to be released, needs to be moved on, or needs to be alchemized. So maybe it's like, okay, maybe I'm not releasing the whole job, but maybe I'm alchemizing who I am at the job. And I'm no longer going to show up as, the peacemaker, people pleaser. Like I'm going to show up in my full sovereignty, honoring my talents, honoring my gifts, it's pitching the ideas that I want to pitch, being more in that Aries energy. Similar in like relationships, whether it's family, whether it's a loved one, a romantic relationship, a friendship, seeing what relationships have been out of balance, right? Where are you feeling like that relationship prevented you from fully standing in your power? And were there parts of you that were self-sacrificing for that? So it could go either way, right? Like we're going to be somewhere on the spectrum. We're either going to be perhaps a person that was like only thinking about themselves, and in some areas we might have like some areas of one and some areas of both, right? And like seeing that perspective, right? I had just aha over the weekend with that, with my parents being here, and I was in my head, because we all have like so much history, right, with our parents sometimes, about different things, and trying to plan all this for them and make sure I had things going. And my mother-in-law called me at one point. We were talking and she was like, how's it going? And I was like, I don't know, like, I have to clean and, whatever. And she was just like, Cass, like, I just want to be around you. Like, they don't care. they don't care if you have like something fun planned or not. Like, it's okay. They can just hang out while you clean or whatever, right? And it's in those moments, right? Which is not like, it's not like I was, yet I say that because I think it illustrates that like you can be in that kind of self-centered Aries and have it not necessarily be like a bad thing or like a, you know, a cruel thing, so to speak. But I needed that perspective to see the other perspective, right? I was locked in my point of view, and to see the other perspective of like another like parent figure to say, hey, like, actually get out of your head. Like, like your parents don't care. They just want to be around you, whatever you're doing, right? So sometimes it's things like that, right? And looking at like, where have I gotten stuck in my ideas and my one track thoughts that I need to release? And then vice versa, where have I dimmed my own fire to appease someone else? And maybe that chapter needs to end so that I can step up with courage and power into the next thing. The Aries Libra axis in general, as someone that has that as their south node, north node, Libra is the south node, Aries is the north node, is when you're used to more people pleasing. You're used to like, you know, being in relationships and focusing on balance and focusing on the other. And you're not as used to standing up in your sovereignty, you know, being the pioneer, being the starter, like having more of that kind of like, I'm going to actually have the tough conversation to honor my desires, right? I'm going to have the tough conversation. And that could be as simple. One of the examples I've given to clients is like, this could be the simple example. I have a lot of clients that have kids as well. And when you're tallying up, delegating, like your husband does that versus you do that, could be something as silly like in the morning, sometimes one of us will go take Hudson for a walk to like a little cafe by us and grab coffees for the both of us. And the other person will either be like getting dressed or preparing Hudson's food or, you know, doing something around the house while they're doing that. And it's the subtlest thing, but being in your Aries versus being in your Libra, being in your Aries could be honoring. Like I will often say to my husband, probably more times than not, actually, even if he's offering to go get the coffees with Hudson and it's from a loving place, actually, I would really love to do that, right? Can you do whatever it is at home? And it's never an issue, obviously. It's never an issue. But it's taking that moment to actually honor your true preference and say, hey, like, even if like someone's a coworker at work is like, oh, let me take that off your plate, I can handle that for you, right? Or like, oh, I can handle, you know, bringing the cupcakes in for the meeting on Tuesday, right? And so they're doing a nice thing, but your truth is actually, I really enjoy baking the cupcakes for whoever's birthday, and I don't want you to take that off my plate. Is honoring that verse and vice versa, right? Being like, okay, actually I got assigned to these cupcakes for the meeting on Friday. Does anyone else feel like they would be willing to do that? Because I just don't think I can do it with my week. So sometimes it's standing in that energy of like asking for what you truly want. And having that Aries full moon moment, it is a moment of being in yourself, in your energy, of tuning back into you and saying, what is completing right now for me? For me, not because of what anyone else in my life wants or what anyone else in the world says I should do or should want, but for me, in my own energy, what chapter is closing? And with that chapter closing, what am I stepping into? And where am I, the chapter close, obviously, like, you know, you can't turn a page without then having the next one, right? So when we're closing this chapter, it's like, where are we boldly, what happens when we close that chapter, right? If we close the chapter on never speaking up at meetings at work, if we close the chapter at always putting, you know, our, you know, kids' preferences in front of ours, then what happens, right? That was like another element that has come up in, you know, my sacred structure readings is when we're looking at our day, sometimes we think we need these like massive time blocks or massive shifts to honor our soul and honor, you know, our time and our self-care, right? But oftentimes the Aries self is just being in the knowledge of the self. And so it can be something simple like this morning when I'm like, you know what? I love having oatmeal in the morning. It's like my favorite thing. I will like die on the hill of oatmeal. And even I know that's like so controversial these days to like oatmeal. But I was like, I want oatmeal this morning. It was kind of a cold morning here. And so Hudson had oatmeal this morning, right? Instead of being like, you know what? Hudson loves like he always eats fruit and then he loves like these little like veggie waffle things or whatever. But today, and sometimes I'm like that, sometimes standing on the hill of myself is just making the easier thing for him so that, you know, he's good and I can focus on whatever I need to focus on. But it also is making those like micro choices of like, I really want oatmeal. So like, we're just going to have oatmeal today. And like that, and he loved it. And it was fine. Right. And even if he didn't love it, it's still okay. Right. Because I'm allowed to make that micro choice. And so sometimes it is looking at the like minutia of what am I doing in my day that's like really for someone else. And where might that need to shift? Where might that need to change? Because when we make all those shifts, we end up actually, if you start doing that in literally like every element of your day, we're like really honoring that. Then before you know it, you've changed your whole life. You've certainly changed how you feel throughout the day, right? Because you're honoring that part of you. And the same thing with an Aries full moon. Because full moons are not only, so I would say like in a new moon is when we plant the seed, and then a full moon is either when that like sprout breaks ground or when like the flower blooms, right? Or the fruit is on the vine, right? So it's also looking at with Aries, I would say, is there something that you planted a bit ago that has been like gestating and growing and is ready to poke its head through the soil, so to speak, that this full moon is like, it's go time. Okay, I've been, you know, sitting on this for a while. I've been wanting to start this thing. I've been, you know, I've had this project I've been working on, or maybe I've had a manuscript that I'm ready to, you know, it's been ready to sit out for months now. This Aries full moon could be like completion. Like this is the completion of that gestation process. And now it's time to boldly hand it off. Or you've been thinking about doing something for a while. You've been thinking about maybe making a bold move. And this full moon, again, can be the completion of like you planted the seed, you've been sowing this seed, you know, taking care of the soil, watering it, and then this full moon can be go time. So in that way, for some people, this full moon could feel like a new moon. But the difference is that again, this isn't something that you're starting out of the blue. This is something that it's actually been like percolating for a bit. You know, those brownies have been in the oven for the 40 minutes, right? And now it's time to take them out. Now it's time to let the people eat them. Maybe you've been working on your website for 3 months behind the scenes, right? 6 months behind the scenes. And now it's time to launch that. So a full moon in Aries can also look a little bit like that. If you've got something you've been kind of working on in the back. That's a really exciting full moon. And I think it's a great grounding full moon after eclipse season where we may or may not have felt like we were in the, you know, the tornado of destiny and have had things, you know, taken away from us or our course shifted or things moved. And I think this full moon gives us that moment to really like ground down and tune in and say, okay, what chapters, sorry, I don't know, like froze for a second. What chapters am I ready to close, and what things maybe that are gestating am I ready to like bring forth and take action on. And I think it's really nice to, after we are settling down from a more chaotic energy, I'm going to say, to not that the energy is still not chaotic in the world, but to have this moment, to let this moment be that moment where you tune into yourself and where you do ask yourself, what am I burning in the fire? What am I alchemizing into gold now? And what is, when I block out the noise outside of me and I'm with myself and I'm with my soul and I'm with my own intuition, what is the next phase of that, right? Yeah, it's really powerful. It's really, I'm happy. I'm happy about this. I'm happy about this energy for us right now. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I've been trying, this is probably one of my like percolating things that I've been, that I'm now putting forth on this Aries full moon, which I didn't even consciously do. One of the things I've been percolating on for a bit postpartum now is getting back to a more regular YouTube and Substack and podcast cadence for you all. And part of that is, at least with the podcast and YouTube, and I'm already at like 22 minutes, so I don't know how good I've been, is shorter me episodes where you're getting some bites of wisdom, astrological insights, talking about different sacred structure, things that I work on with my coaching clients. So you're getting that in the mix, as well as the longer interviews as well. Because if you're anything like me, sometimes I just want the 20-minute download, right? And so yeah, so keep an eye on that. And if you're on my Substack, there's going to be more exciting announcements coming up on my Substack as well. And yeah, we're going for 2 YouTube videos a week now moving forward. And 1 to 2 Substacks every week as well moving forward. So I'm really excited about that, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while and have been gestating on myself, that I guess clearly wanted to come out to play on this Aries full moon. So thanks for being a listener. Thanks for being a subscriber. Thanks for being here. And if you'd like to get more personal insights from me, check out the links below for my 2 very exciting new audio offerings, where I can either look at your human design and your astrology and help give you some information and insights on your sacred structure and how that fits into your daily schedule and going about your dreams and goals and the things that you want for your life in this season, as well as I have an Ask Cassandra Anything audio. So if you wanted a bit of spot coaching, if you're like, hey Cass, I'm wanting to write my first book, or I'm struggling with this thing in my relationship, anything you want, if you'd like just an audio recorded answer for me instead of a full-on live session, I'm really excited to offer this, and doing them has been so fun for me. So if you want a little taste of what it would be like working for me, check the links below. I think you'll enjoy.